In the bottom section, to get you started, what I'd like you to do is take a roll of tape from our cabinet, door number 2 and 3, and place it somewhere just past the edge of your paper, and lightly with a pencil, come in and draw yourself a little bit of a circle, okay? That's gonna be our guide for our sphere, right? And then we also need to make sure that we have chosen a direction that we want the light to come from. So I'm gonna have the light come from over here, since we're kind of going from light to dark up there. So that means I'm gonna have a little bit of a highlight here, right? And then I wanna find the center axis. So center is about right here. So that's where the beginning of my shadow should happen. And I'm gonna come down here just a little bit and say, here is my oval for my shadow. Okay, we'll play along with that just a little bit later. So again, we're working with the idea of scraping primarily with our 2 tools, the scoop and the fine point. Now, I would totally suggest doing something practice oriented. I made myself, like on my practice scrap sheet here, just to kind of get a feeling of how things are going. I started by making a little bit of my oval, my highlight, my shine, right? And I played out a little small circle so I could play with the idea of this tool working a little bit and then working and fading down to the fine point tool, okay? Again, there is no hard outline. We're not gonna go around the circle with a hard outline. That's a no-no, okay? We want the value to come from the edges and be the texture and the shading. So come from the outside, and I curve when I come in from the outside, right? Okay, so do a practice run, or 2 or 3, just to kind of get a feel for it. One of the things that I think that is helpful is that this tool here is great for obviously getting, I'm trying to find the right angle, right there, for getting, you know, the highlight scraped away, but the highlight isn't very big, right? Look, the highlight, if I put my tool on it, it's almost the same size as the tool itself. So we're not looking for like a gigantic, you know, 1-inch oval. I'm looking for a small little highlight, okay? Things to keep in mind. All right, let's go on to the good paper. So I'm gonna get started on the highlight first. So I'm going to kind of come in here, and I still want to work in a circular kind of fashion. I'm gonna try and pull my circle. It helps me to spin the paper because it's very hard to get a circle feel unless I am turning the paper. So I'm gonna continue to kind of, now that I have my oval, I'm gonna try and wisp a little bit out from the oval, right? Now I wanna get these, think of like accent lines or swirling water, right? Because I need to space out now. So I'm using a little bit more of the top of this wide guy rather than the side of it. I'm gonna keep going in a circle, following my oval. Very important, because if your lines start to go too straight, you're not gonna feel the curve of your sphere. I'm going to touch the outer edge. I'm not outlining, I'm touching the outer edge and bringing my curves in. So here we go. Okay, so now, see how I kind of crossed over? I used some of this to kind of cross back up into the wide stuff. So it kind of blends the wide and the narrow. So we are going to draw ourselves, I'm going to use this just to make a straight line, my scrap piece. Remembering that we want sort of to represent the table and the wall area a little bit, just so we have some place to kind of work with the sphere's table color versus its actual shadow. So remember that your table line has to be above the shadow to kind of help us out with this. All right, so here we go, there's that. So now I have a separation between here and here. So now what I wanna do is I'm gonna probably start to scrape a little bit of the floor. So, or the table space, floor, table, whatever we wanna call it. So again, I'm gonna use probably something a little bit wider because this is the dark area, right? So I'm gonna make the table just a little bit wider, whiter, I guess is the better way to say it. So I'm gonna go horizontal because remember table surfaces, horizontal. Notice how I'm using the lines to kind of define a little bit of where the edge of the shadow will be, right? I need to do that then over here on this side. I'm gonna turn this upside down. Sorry about that, don't mean to freak you out. Just so I can get a better, it always works best, I think, to start at the edge of something and work your way out than trying to go into the object and then you take something away that you don't wish you had, okay? So coming from the outer edge of the sphere also helps define the edge of the sphere as well. Now this is the brighter side, right? So I might come in a little bit later here with some more of the fine lines in between there to help lighten this side just a little bit more than the other side. So here I come, I'm gonna come around this way. And again, this is sort of helping define the table value. Here's this. I'm gonna kind of finish on a sort of a ragged edge. This is what we call a vignette, when you kind of end in some sort of a ragged or loose fade off. But it gives us enough of a feeling of table space. So I'm coming through here. All right, now I'm gonna shake that off, come back over here so I can work this direction. All right, I'm gonna come up here just a little bit. Fade that out. Okay. Now, the important part is the shadow itself, right? It is darkest closest to the object, right? Right underneath this reflected highlight is the darkest part of our shadow. So that means the ends of the shadow need to fade into the shadow a bit. So I'm very lightly making some pretty long spaced out lines that represent the end of the shadow, right? Some more concentrated here as it starts to fade into the table color, and long wispy ones that kind of head back into the shadow. I might even just kind of give one or two more so they're really spaced out, right? And I'm gonna come back over here to my bright side, and I'm gonna add some more fine point lines in between some of these thicker ones to make this side of the table area a little bit brighter and concentrated because we're on the lighter side. So I'm gonna kind of remove a little bit more over here. I come in tighter up against my sphere so we feel its brightness. Okay, now see how this is a little bit brighter over here than it is over here, right? And we've got our fade into there. Well, then the same thing would be said for our wall, right? So we're gonna come in and we're gonna do the wall similarly. So I'm gonna come in and do the vertical on the wall. And again, it helps to start with the surface or the outline edge, and then bring yourself your verticals up. This is my bright side, right? So I'm going to come along the edge here of my sphere and give more of a careful removal. You get the idea, so I'm gonna speed up. Okay, tap it all off, and that's what we got. Okay, so our next phase I'd like you to do is I'd like you to play with just scraping around a bit with our two unique tools, okay? To kind of just do a texture test. So that's kind of what I wrote here on the end is I just drew myself two little boxes, and I've got texture test 1 and 2, okay? So I'm gonna play a bit with these here. Let me tilt that up a bit. All right, so we can kind of get these into view. All right, so I'm gonna work first with this tool, and I just kind of wanna play a little bit with what it looks like when I do a little cross hatching, so I can get a feel for how it looks, how it removes. What does it look like that way? And then what it looks like when I just kind of lighten my hand pressure, right? So go from something that's brighter to something that fades out with your hand pressure, just so you can see a little bit of what it looks like. So a little cross hatching, and then a little light to dark fade. So I'm gonna try and come this way. What does it look like when I cross hatch? And then I'm gonna try and do something a little bit more dark and light, so I fade out. So I've got my two different test options, all right? Once you've done this, put it on the easel, photograph it, and upload it back to Schoology.